Yes, we'll type it in the chat.
All right. This is for early childhood education 306.
301.
301. Perfect. So, what can I help you with this afternoon?
I'm working on a lesson plan.
All right.
Yes.
So, what do you need help with respect to lesson plan?
I think it's with the lesson plan. I can share my.
Yeah, you can. You just go to present now, go over to entire screen, select entire screen, and then share.
Let's go.
So I can see the screen. So,
Yes.
so the assignment was to create a lesson plan, or
This is the very top of the lesson plan.
sure. But what is it specifically that you need help with, or would like to go over, have questions about?
Let's see. I think the part I would maybe need help with is is the with the objective here.
Okay. Let's see, element four, learning objectives. Measure behavior objectives. What do you expect students to know and be able to do by the end of learning experiences? Plans, use purpose taxonomy. Okay, well, to do objectives, the question becomes what are what like exercises are you using, right?
Yeah. What I'm doing for the lesson plan is that I'm still gonna read them a book, and then during the reading of the book there will be the teacher, I will be asking them questions about the pictures in the book, and then there'll be toward the end they'll have a chance to turn to their classmates and a ask what was their favorite part of the story that they just heard. And after they heard that, what their favorite part of the story is, they also get a chance to write it on a piece of paper. 1 to 2 sentences about their favorite part, and then they get to share it out.
Yeah. Then the question becomes, in reading them this book and the associated exercises that you just explained to me, what is it do you want them to know or be able to do? For example, in reading this book to them, is it your objective to want them to be able to comprehend auditorily the story you tell them and then be able to recite information on that? Or, is the objective to be able to say, synthesize information you receive or pick out vocabulary?
I think it's like the first thing you said with what I'm trying to do for this. Yeah.
So that first one I said, well, all three are examples of learning objectives. And so, if you agree with the first one, it sounds like at least one of your learning objectives, because you can always have more, is that you want students to be able to listen to a story, be able to comprehend said story, and then answer questions based off what they hear to show that they understood what was said to them and can think critically on the information, such as explaining your favorite part. That's an example of how you might write an objective. Not have to be that thorough. For starters, you could just start simple. I want them to be able to understand the contents of a story that I tell to them orally. But that's the idea. Think about your exercises, like we've just done here. Think about, the activities that you then planned afterwards, and then you just insert that sort of commonality, common thread throughout here. Understanding if those spoken to you, and being able to then write something about or using that information that shows me you understood. So that's what the objective section is about.
Okay. I'm not sure. Can you about the central focus here for the paper? I'm not sure if I have the right idea here for it.
No. Well, let's see. So central focus. What content do you want the students to know? Your concepts must be developmentally appropriate, must take into consideration the active, multimodal nature of young children's learning. Give students a sense of where they are going by stating the concept you be teaching them. Central focus of this lesson is about the ability to retell a story through questions. Turn and talk the 1-2 sentences about their favorite part of their story. This lesson will support some understanding of the story being read to them and ability to have classmates. By the end of the lesson, children will be able to write 1-2 sentences about the story. What concepts do you want your students to know? Okay. Honestly, this section sounds a little bit more like objectives than central focus. moving from there, that second set, or that the turn and talk in the 1-2 sentences about their favorite part of the story. What did you mean by that?
I meant like so-called with that talking to their classmates. They're also doing that writing of not writing. They're doing the verbal version of the favorite part of their story they heard there.
All right. Well, for that sentence, you're gonna have to fix up the grammar a little bit.
Okay.
Because turn and talk and the 1-2 sentences, you know, I don't know. Someone wouldn't know what that means. Turn and talk, we understand. Like we're so far so good. And the 1-2 sentences, we don't know what's happening.
Oh, okay.
What are we doing with these 1-2 sentences? We writing them down and then telling it, we just talking to each other very shortly. So, and the way you described it to me, I'd elongate it to just make it more clear.
Okay.
But to get back to your initial question about central focus, that first sentence is quite, close. Like, what concepts do you want students to know? So you say in the first one, central focus of the lesson to develop the ability to retell a story through questions. Now, does that make sense? How would you retell a story through questions? Because when someone's retelling it, it implies they're the person then explaining to someone else. And through questions means you're wanting them to explain the story to someone by asking that someone questions. So do you want them to be like, what was the main character of the book? Who was Johnny? It's possible. It's kind of, weird. But it seems that what you're trying to say is you want them to be able to synthesize information and critically analyze a text.
I think that's what I was trying to say here.
So something like that would fit more closely with central focus, because you notice how it says, what concepts do you want them to know? Synthesizing of information is a concept. If we stick with the latter part through questions, being able to synthesize or break down a text into questions that you could ask someone else. That's a type of concept, a lot more advanced, not necessarily suitable for children, but that's what you want. So in this section, you pretty much only need one sentence to be the first one. You just break it down into an idea you want them to know. Like, I want them to know how to understand and synthesize a text that they hear orally. I want them to stuff like that. And I'm sure I would look back to samples that you may have been provided in your class to just see what concepts other people have written to ensure that what I said and that what you revised makes sense.
Okay.
And then the remaining portions of this section sound like objectives. It is concrete things that you want them to be able to do or be capable of doing by the end of this lesson. So central focus, concepts, conceptual. It's ideas and stuff that you want them to know about. Objectives is, here's the stuff I want them to be able to know, but then be able to use, be able to do something. So if we use math as an example, concept, I want the have a working knowledge of factoring polynomials. Understand polynomial factorization. That's a concept. And then objectives would be, I want them to be able to factor two-order polynomials as well as, polynomials with multiple variables, so on and so forth. A little bit more specific.
Okay. So you said like what I have for the last two sentences at this part right now, it seems like it's the objectives.
Pretty much everything after that first sentence, which I believe, yes, might be two sentences, yes. You could just tweak the language a little bit and it sounds a lot more like objectives to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But they're very closely together. Like I said, central focus is in a way a concept. And then objectives are just like a bit more specific things that just in this lesson you want them to be. Yeah.
For this part, the part before the central focus, these have too many parts. I'm not sure. Am I answering this part of the state the central goal here?
Yeah, let's see here. There's something nice now, blah blah. It's 9 points of less plan in relation to students' growth development for research students grow learning intelligence. It's not your chosen instructional method to achieve your stated objectives. All right. State the central goal. The goal is to strengthen the students' reading, retention, and ability to be able to write one to short sentences and draw about their favorite part of the story. Based on what you told me, I would say that no, this is incorrect. Simply because you said that you were telling them a story that they were simply listening to. You, from what you've explained to me, they don't have the text themselves. So it's not reading retention, it's listening retention. Instead of listening retention, maybe just listening skills.
Okay.
And then after the word and, I put their, T-H-E-I-R, just to make it a little bit clearer, and their ability to be able to write 1, 2 short sentences about. You don't need the word draw in that final component of the sentence. And their ability to be able to write 1, 2 short sentences, you can get rid of and as well, about their favorite part of the story. See, this is a bit clearer, makes sense. Sounds like a good central goal.
Okay. And this part of the highlighting the relevance of the lesson.
The highlight relevance to student lives?
Yeah.
Students' lives. All right, this one's designed for beginners to understand about creative writing. Write creative writing. Students read stories read to them many times by the teacher. Their story they will be reading. Just going to the foxes. Be around them this time. But once more, from the sounds of it, it sounds like they're just listening. They're not reading. So then it also doesn't sound like they're learning about creative writing and write creatively. It sounds like you want them to be able to listen to a story, understand that story, and then explain to you something they liked about that story. And then so when it says the story they will be reading, you should probably change it to the story that I will be reading to them, or that I will be reading, just to keep it consistent.
Okay.
So it sounds like so far, going through everything you told me in this session is about listening skills, versus everything that you have written was about them learning to read. So my biggest suggestion is figure out which one of these are you talking about. Like, because, if you truly meant reading, then I have, made edits that will now are incorrect. If you truly mean listening, like it's, at least in this session it seems so, then you're gonna have to change kind of everything to reflect listening, not minorly. And so you should start at the top and work your way down. But the important thing is maybe write out separately, what is it you want them to do? Why are you doing them? What is the mode? Listening or reading, writing. Keep that there. Make sure you understand what you yourself just wrote, and then refer back to it as you go through everything else so that it stays consistent. So that halfway through the document, your teacher doesn't read this and be like, you were telling me we're doing listening. Why are they working on reading? You were telling me they were doing listening. Why are we now working on creative writing? Because, it's going to confuse the teacher, because the lessons, the objectives are no, and the exercises are no longer in unity. And so what you're attempting to convey to the teacher of what you want to do becomes more muddled and confused, which could damage, your grade.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions or concerns that you have that you'd like to ask about?
I'm not sure about this highlight skill development part.
Highlight skill development. Identify special skills, social and physical, social development. Students are learning how to make sense of the vocabulary, which are key components of improving physical development. When students are using their brains and hands to think and write about their favorite part of the story, students are learning to remember what they heard in the story. This is cognitive development systems to remember the story. Students will also be doing turn and talk classroom to develop their communication. The section is fine. It is in line with everything else you said. However, personally, when you say things like you know, this is cognitive development, since students will be able to remember the story. What's your proof of that? Like, you're telling me that this will help their cognitive development, but why? Like, what's the science, And then same thing for the second sentence. This will help develop their communication skills. Okay, but why? So citing some type of evidence, your textbook will, that would make sense. Because otherwise, it's like me saying, having students solve math problems on the board helps their cognitive skills. Yes, it's very nice. Makes sense, but it leaves us all wondering, okay, why specifically does that work? They put in the sentence, well, according to blah, 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 working through problems. So working through problems without a guide, this repetition links the content or causes a stronger relationship in the brain between the content and the material, causing it to be, a more targeted, stronger memory, and causes the different blah, blah, blah portions of the brain to work together, which further enhances knowledge. Insert citation, something like that. Just to show, like, you didn't just pull it out of you. Some credible, knowledgeable person that we've been reading through the semester is the one who said that this is, true.
Okay.
Any questions?
Then for this part of my instructional approach, is it okay, or would I need a change?
Instructional approach. Very much explain why you chose the activities, materials, and teaching methods. Consider how they cater to other students' needs. You're going to first read the story, ask questions about the story, time, then get to talk to your partners. So, the answer to your question is yes, you need to change.
Okay.
Why? Because what is the first portion that the instructional approach says it wants you to do?
Briefly explain why you chose.
You have told me the things that you have chose, and have you told me why you have chosen them?
No.
No. So that explanation as to why these things were chosen is what you need to put there.
For this part, how would I explain why I chose it? Like how?
Well, we all have a reason behind our decisions. You didn't. Well, it says read a story here, but well, yeah, you didn't choose for the teacher to read a story just because you were like, that's a nice idea. Maybe you chose the teacher to read the story because these are kindergartners. They don't necessarily speak super duper well. It would be difficult for them to read the story. And you want them to focus on hearing good pronunciation so that they can not only, in addition to the main goal of developing their ability to retain information they've heard all, orally, and then translate and then regurgitate a bit about it onto the page. but also so that they get additional experience hearing proper pronunciation to help passively improve that skill, right?
Mm.
We have reasons for the stuff we pick. The activities you pick. Well, the activity you pick is because it relates to the goal of blah, because by putting it in this mold, it forces them to use these skills, so on and so forth. So, like, I don't know, for practicing swimming, for people who haven't swum, I have them, do 2 lengths of the pool holding onto a kickboard. Why? I want them to get used to the feeling of using their feet to propel them forward, and I want them to get used to balancing their bodies in this position. By holding onto a kickboard, it helps them get the correct posture and technique form for doing the front crawl, whilst also giving them a safety so that they don't feel like that they are going to drown. That's an explanation of why I would do that activity. Why choose kickboards? They're relatively cheap. If the person lets them go and it bonks them in the head, they're made of foam, no one would really get hurt. Mm-hmm. This is the idea. Okay.
Is this the reference to the dairy kind of similar to that previous idea here?
Reference to educational theory research. It will mention relevant theories of research that supports the instructional choices made in the lesson. Yes. So when I said that in the parts where you're like, well, this is why I'm doing it, and quote smart people, here's where you're putting the reference, as in the full citation, in accordance with the citation format that your teacher requests.
So this is the citations.
Yes, that is the citation section. So if you're saying, I want to use, the audiolingual method, right? Like that's the one you talked about. Obviously, you're going to put audiolingual method and maybe a citation of where you got it from there. And then the learned people that you use to talk about why these techniques work, put it here. That's, that's that.
Okay. Is this okay for the context of my language lesson context?
In addition to the checklist below, write a narrative about class and here it is. Describe how the concepts for the lesson design for the lessons of the unit being studied. All right, so let's see. Okay, where is it? Okay. Let's see, it's curved middle. Oh, okay. And all right. So you say this lesson is for the whole class, but okay, never mind. I got it. Class movement consists of the background. These are presented at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In addition to the below, write note about class and all right. This lesson will take place in the middle of the school year. Whoops, that's not one. Can you go down a little bit? This lesson will take place in the school year. This would be a reason. So if we scroll a little bit back up. So number point 2, describe how the context informed your lesson design from the relationships of the lesson to the unit being studied in the overall curriculum. So we have the 1 minute lesson unit occurring in the middle of the school year. See how the students are able to read and write. Good. The only thing that I could see here would be the first one. Describe how the context informs your lesson's design. So based off of the sort of diverse, both, in terms of ethnicity and cultures as well as developmentally, how did that influence or inform the lesson's design? Would be the one thing I don't see necessarily answered here.
For that little bullet point? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it could be something as simple as, like, let's just say that your entire kindergarten class is, refugees from Syria, for example.
Mm.
Well, if an entire class full of Syrian refugees, and your reading says penguin and pumpkin pie. I'm gonna assume that that is related to Halloween at some kind. Maybe I'm wrong. So you could just even have them suppose, my entire class comes from a different country and are learning the language. They don't know anything about American culture. So reading about Halloween is fun because they're in kindergarten, false candy and spooky things, but it teaches them important things about American culture. Like that would be an example of how the makeup of your class inform the lesson's design because it, you know, is what you used as the determining factor for what kind of reading to, share with them. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. And for that part, would I put it in the first paragraph for it?
You could put it in the second. You could put it between paragraph 1 and 2. It just depends, like, how structure it. But I would put it between paragraph and 1 of 2 at first, just to get your ideas there.
Mm-hmm.
And then based off how you've written it, you can move it, according to what you feel makes the most sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. For the standards.
Yes. Curriculum standards? What
Yeah.
about it?
It said it needs to be connected to my objective. So like would I need to find my standards first or like write my objectives and then how?
Well, for your curriculum needs to be connected to your objectives, so you need to have objectives for them to connect to. The lesson plan is designed for you to be able to do everything in descending order.
Mm-hmm.
So you would do the objectives first.
Mm-hmm.
And then curriculum standards, Common Core Early Language Development Standards. You would have to look those up in where it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I don't know the Common Core standards off
Mm-hmm.
the top of my head. I assume, improving the four, main areas of language, right? Reading, writing, listening, speaking, and then some other stuff. So you'd be like, for example, let's just take speaking. Right. You look at the Common Core standard under speaking because your stuff says I want them to be able to give a speech at the end of this lesson. And you find it in the section of speaking and be like, improve pronunciation, blah blah blah. And that's, the curriculum standard that you're associated with. That's kind of the idea. So write your learning objectives. That when you make it to the section, just open the Common Core Early Language and Development Standards that, it says to refer to.
Mm-hmm.
And then just look at the mode that your stuff is. What do you want them to be able to do? Read, write, speak, listen, and then find the respective section, and then under it, find the things that match the best, and there you go.
Okay. And then this part.
How your learning experience provide opportunities for listening, reading, speaking, viewing, speaking, writing, and by representation. What mechanisms would you target for the explanation so students can access the material? How the language function set the score to listening to one of the succeed in this lesson? For evidence-based supports, we try to help the students who all succeed. And you might differentiate groups of students who help on something. That's vocabulary syntax that you're going to use in the lesson, and whose theory-based support that you are providing. So which one of those is confusing you?
For this part, would I need to have everything even for the reading? If the kid's not gonna do any reading, really?
Well, it's here, so you do your best. It's probably not going to be that big, but hey, you're having them write down 2 sentences, so you hope that they can read those 2 sentences. And that might be all that you put in the reading section, when they're sharing it with a partner, right? Maybe before they talk, you'll have your partner read what the other partner wrote, and there you go.
Okay.
So you fill them out to the best of your ability, and if, one is a lot less than the other, that's fine, because you're focusing on a specific skill.
Is there a difference between the viewing and the visual representation here? Okay.
Let's see. My honest answer to that question is maybe I don't know. I hardly ever encounter viewing listed amongst these types of standards. I'm going to assume viewing is like if they're watching something, right? So like the ability to process, I guess, information happening in some type of film, show, whatever. Versus visual representation is just like how is information presented, right? So like a table, a chart, a colorful postcard, that kind of thing. PowerPoint, that would be visual representation. As for viewing, like I said, I would take it upon you to go look that up.
Mm-hmm.
You probably covered in your class and had a lot better of like an understanding than I do.
Okay.
We've got 3 minutes. Any final questions, points of concern?
Mm-hmm. Maybe with this one here, the element.
Instruction procedures. Give detailed step-by-step instructions on how you implement the instructional plan. Using a numbered list, describe exactly what you will do and what students will do during the lesson. List actions that engage children in active learning. Ensure that your lessons build upon students' prior knowledge. Any questions at all levels of learning taxonomy to create higher order thinking and problem solving. Correctly identify questions for taxonomy. Oh, ask questions. Including transition plans and techniques used. It's literally building off of what you were doing earlier. You've told me what types of things that you are going to use. This section is saying, now tell me explicitly, step by step, in as much detail as possible, what you are going to do, when you're going to do it, and what type of things are you going to say that satisfy all of these requirements.
Okay.
So for the reading the story, right? Let's just do a basic one. Are you only going to read it once?
Yeah.
Only once?
Yeah.
To kindergartners.
And then we're going to do the activity after.
So you're going to only read the story once to kindergartners. Personally, might I suggest at least reading it twice? But fair enough. But that's the kind of thing. You'd be like, we will read the story once, or the teacher will read the story once. They will then ask them to do the activity. But be as specific as you can. You'll ask them to spend 5 minutes doing the activity. Or she will ask them questions such as blank before doing the activity to assess knowledge. It's just a section to be as thorough as possible. Okay. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Any final questions that you think you could get through?
I think that might be all.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's write up these visit notes. What is the name of this assignment? Lesson plan? Final, yeah. Or just... Is it the final lesson? Is it called like a lesson plan key assessment? Lesson plan key assessment? Yeah. Just take a peek of the wording at the top. We discussed the lesson plan key as in KEY. Yeah. We discussed the lesson plan key assessment. All right. So visit notes are, we met online via Google Meet. That's for our records. And then we discussed the lesson plan assessment. Yeah. Sound good? All right. You will log out. That little visit note record will be sent as an email to your teacher tomorrow evening. Okay. Otherwise, best of luck on this assignment, and I hope it goes well. Yeah, thank you. Of course. Have a good rest of your day. You too. Thank you.